south of the Great Lakes capital city, covering all of North America via satellite, AM and FM stations all across the country, and live and archived on the World Wide Web. This is hour number 3 of Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks, as we continue on here on the 9th of January, 2010. We've covered last week, really, we spent the whole show last week talking about the terrorism, what the source of terrorism is. We talked about Operation Cyclone in Afghanistan back in 1979, and the fact that our government has, through the CIA, some of the special programs that they had, where they built the madrasas for the Taliban and things like that. You know, a lot of the things we're being told today about terrorism, the source of terrorism, it's just not the way it's being presented, ladies and gentlemen. And we're more and more across America. We're seeing more and more of this stuff as we had false flag operations. We've had various things that have been orchestrated for us as an excuse to go into other countries and be involved. And so whenever something like this happens, we have to look at history, and we have to see some of the things that have been done over time, and certainly ask the questions that are uncomfortable. Look at the documentation, the information that's available to us. More and more things have come out about this attack on Christmas Day on Northwest Flight 253, and this Mutallab guy, Mutallab, however you pronounce his name, this extremist. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this with Kurt and Lori Haskell. Kurt and Lori were on the flight Christmas Day. They witnessed the whole thing. They are the people who witnessed at the boarding gate a sharp-dressed man that helped get Mutallab on the flight. And so we have them here right now, and they're going to be sharing their story and their observations with us. And if nothing else, ladies and gentlemen, it's important because it provides more data, more information from an eyewitness that was there. And these aren't just ordinary folks. I mean, these folks have their law firm. They're attorneys in Taylor, my old hometown, which is a suburb of Detroit. Anyway, they're going to be joining us in a few minutes here to tell their story, to tell their observations. So I highly encourage you to stay tuned and to pay attention, because what they have to say is very important. So we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we'll bring up Kurt and Lori here on Govern America. Welcome back to the broadcast, Govern America. Kurt and Lori Haskell are attorneys at the Haskell Law firm in Taylor, Michigan, and were passengers aboard the Northwest Flight 253 when Umar Farouk Abdul Mutallab attempted to blow it up using an underwear bomb on Christmas Day. Prior to the flight, the Haskells say they witnessed a sharply dressed man aid Mutallab onto the flight without a passport, and they're joining us today. We're happy to have them on Govern America to tell their story. Good morning, Kurt and Lori.
Morning.
I appreciate you being with us. Why don't you start, either one of you, why don't you go ahead and start and tell us a little bit about yourselves and talk about how you came to be on this Northwest flight.
I'll go ahead. Lori and I are attorneys. We have our own law firm in Taylor, and we're on an African safari in Uganda, coming back, and we had a connecting flight through Amsterdam, which was our last flight to get home to Detroit. And I'm sorry. What I saw in the airport at Amsterdam was two men approaching the final ticket agent. One I would describe as a poor black teenager, and the other I would describe as a wealthy-looking 50-ish Indian man.
Okay, and, now you were sitting on the floor there at the terminal?
We were sitting on the floor about 10 feet from the final ticket agent playing cards. There weren't any seats around where we could sit by each other together. It was pretty crowded. So that's why we were sitting there. And when the two approached the final ticket agent, only the Indian man spoke, and what he said was, this man needs to board the plane, but he doesn't have a passport. And the ticket agent then said, well, you need a passport to get on the plane. And the Indian man then responded, well, he's from Sudan. We do this all the time. And the ticket agent then referred them to a manager down a hallway, and the two went down the hallway. We never saw the Indian man again. He never got on our plane, and the man, who I thought was a poor black teenager, would be the one that would later try and blow up our plane.
So you didn't see them again until later on. You recognized him when they took Mutallab away, that it was the same man, right?
Right. I recognized him after we landed, and authorities were taking him off the plane. He stood in the aisle for about 5 or 10 seconds, and I got a pretty good look at him, and that's when I made the connection.
Now, tell us a little bit about the flight. How long was the flight?
The flight was, I believe, 8.5 hours.
Okay, and you described it as being mostly uneventful?
Yes, absolutely nothing was going on. It was a good flight, and we were about halfway through our descent when the attack took place.
Lori, can you describe a little bit about what the attack was like? What exactly transpired there on the flight?
Yeah, we were sitting there watching the monitors on the back of our seats, watching, how many minutes we had to landing, where we were in the air, and the pilot announced that the flight attendants needed to take their seats. Right after that, the flight attendant in our area walked by our seats and started kind of talking to herself, saying, "Did anyone just hear that noise?" And then she then started to act a little bit frantic and was saying that she smelled smoke, asking if anyone could see smoke anywhere. Right after that, we started looking around, and we noticed smoke coming out of the seat area in like the 1920 section of the plane. Kurt got up at that point, ignoring our seatbelt light, and walked up towards what was happening. He then saw fire going up the side of the plane. We both did. And he came back and sat down, and kind of everything happened at once at that point. The terrorist was knocked over by 2 passengers and taken into the first class area. A flight attendant grabbed a fire extinguisher and put the fire out. Right before all of that, though, some of the passengers were yelling different words like fire, we need water. Some people were just yelling in general. And one lady, which kind of made Kurt and I realize that this may not just be an electrical fire or something, yelled terrorist. And it kind of made us start to think that there may be somebody trying to blow up our plane versus just some kind of issue with the plane or somebody accidentally starting a fire with a match or something like that.
Yeah. Now, so you didn't even know there had actually been a terrorist attack until somebody actually yelled the word terrorist.
Well, and even at that point, I don't think either one of us knew for sure. We were just, that was then put into our brains that might be a possibility. But then everyone around us, once things calmed down a little bit, people were talking, and the people that were a couple rows in front of us were saying, no, there was a guy sitting there that did this. He was taken off to first class. Kurt and I didn't even really notice the commotion with him because we were both staring at the fire on the wall, hoping it didn't start spreading towards our side of the plane or throughout the whole entire cabin. There was smoke through a lot of our cabin, and I think that we were more concerned with the fire than, this person that had been taken off to first class. Since he didn't put up a fight or anything, these 2 men basically knocked him over and took him to first class, and it was a pretty non-eventful thing. He wasn't fighting. It wasn't like he was yelling and pushing them, so we didn't even really notice that part of it, even though we were only 7 rows behind them.